Welcome to this chapter by chapter reading of the Montessori Method by Dr. Maria Montessori. When I was starting my Montessori school, I turned directly to Dr. Montessori's original writings, partly out of conviction and partly because they were available in the public domain and free. What I didn't realize at the time was I was reading the original English translation commissioned while Dr. Montessori was still alive, translated in 1912 by Anne E. George. Later, I discovered that many of us have encountered Montessori through later translations, especially the 1967 version, which helped spread the method widely in the US, and for which I'm personally grateful. But returning to the original text, I found something more: Dr. Montessori's full voice, her depth, her vision, and her spiritual and philosophical foundations. In this podcast, I'm reading the original translation chapter by chapter, adding reflections to help connect her words to today's classrooms and families. This is an experiment, an adventure, and a shared journey of learning. Let's begin. Hello and welcome back. Today we're going to be doing chapter 7 of Dr. Montessori's the Montessori Method. We are reading the 1912 translation. So this would have been shortly after she had written it in 1909. So she would have commissioned this translation. And we are reading through chapter by chapter. My name is Melissa Rohan. I am the founder and the head of school here at Waterfront Academy. And I'm excited about this journey with you. This is an interesting chapter. It is titled Exercises of Practical Life. This is really a hallmark in all the classrooms. It's just that the practical life looks different in each of the classrooms because they are developmentally capable of doing more and more things, and different things interest them the older they get. So in this particular chapter, it talks about, we always talk in our classrooms about there are only 3 rules. We only have 3 rules in this school. And this one really talks about 2 of them specifically. So it's kind of exciting for me. So she starts out this chapter with a schedule. And what's interesting about this schedule is that we practice 3-hour uninterrupted work cycles, but that's not what this schedule is. So that says to me a couple of things. The schedule reflects intentional rhythm, not control. That said, that she arrived through experience to the 3-hour work cycle. So it just reminds us that the method was still developing in practice and shaped by observations rather than rigid doctrine. Also, she talks about practical life as the foundation of all work. These exercises are not extras or warm-ups. They're just foundational to concentration, coordination, independence, and order. It's also it answers the immediate developmental needs. And so before academic abstraction, the child must first master the body, movement, intention. And it's also about living in community. As Catholics, we talk about, community. As a school, we talk about community. In the classroom, we talk about community. What does that mean? In society, we live in community. So what does that mean? And so this is really in a family, in our home, we live in community. So we talk about it in so many different ways. And so keeping children from being a participant in community is really a disservice to them, I believe. This is me speaking. So she talks about care of self. And I think that's very interesting because we don't really talk about it that much anymore, but really, a child should be interested in their personal appearance. And it's really about dignity, not vanity. And so just basic washing, grooming, dressing neatly, these are things that we should really be talking to the children about. It's not really about aesthetics. It's not about judgment. It's about self-respect and inner order. In modern language, like I said, we do talk about care of self. And so this is trying, it's hygiene, it's an independence. I think we minimize these habits in children, but currently, but these are, Dr. Montessori really found them fundamental and deeply formative for children. So when a child learns to care for their body, they're learning that they matter. Hygiene in the modern sense, Montessori anticipates that we are now understanding as public health and personal hygiene. These practices support physical well-being, but also mental clarity and emotional regulation. And the classroom becomes a place where health, order, and responsibility are normalized, not enforced. So she also talks about poise, which is something that we don't talk a lot about these days, which I think is still very important. Montessori speaks explicitly about poise, grace of movement, controlled gestures, and calm presence. This is an area where modern practice may fall short because we feel uncomfortable emphasizing it, but poise is not rigidity or suppression. It's a mastery of one's body in service of one's will. Poise is freedom with refinement. Care of environment is a shared responsibility. I feel that parents have a problem enforcing care of environment at home, but here in the classroom, it is also one of the fundamentals that we see in all of our classrooms. Children are entrusted with maintaining their own environment, cleaning, arranging, restoring materials. In the classroom, we call this the care of the environment, but Montessori frames it as a moral and social responsibility. So the child is not a guest in the environment. The child is a steward. Independence as service is not isolation. These these exercises cultivate independence, but not in an individualistic sense. The children's independence allows them to participate meaningfully in community life. So if you were in the home, for example, having the child participate in washing of the dishes. So maybe when they're really young, it's taking the dirty dishes out of the dishwasher and putting them away. Or maybe it is when they're a little bit older, washing of the dishes, or maybe when they're a little bit older, it might be preparing the dinner or setting the table, right? So these are things that the child is doing as being part of the family community. This is important that they get to participate in it and be included. Is what it might look like at home. So practical life, it teaches us that I can take care of myself so I can be better, so I can better live with others around me in my community. So the art of communication, conversation is another thing that she talks about in this chapter, which I think is so important. I feel I have noticed, or I have observed that children are not participating in conversation anymore because they're not having family breakfasts or family dinners, right? The screens have entered into and taken over that time for conversation. So children really don't know how to converse. And so that is something that we I guess Dr. Montessori saw and talked about 100 years ago, but I am now seeing it again. We see another parallel here in today. So Montessori includes conversation as part of the practical life, an often overlooked insight. Children must learn how to speak clearly, listen and attentively, wait their turn, and then respond with courtesy. So conversation is treated as a social skill that must be practiced, not assumed, and conversation is practical life for the social being. Moral development through everyday acts. Underlying all these exercises is a moral vision, responsibility, respect, self-discipline, and dignity. So Montessori, she shows us that character is formed through daily habits, not lectures or rewards. This is a really short chapter, but it's such an important one. And there's so many parallels to today, to our modern life. So we can really learn from this chapter. And so with that, let's start Chapter 7, Exercises of Practical Life. Proposed winter schedule of hours in the children's house. Opening at 9 o'clock, closing at 4 o'clock. 9 to 10, entrance, greeting, inspection as to personal cleanliness, exercises of practical life, helping one another to take off and put on the aprons, going over the room to see that everything is dusted and in order, language, conversation period, children give an account of the events of the day before, religious exercises. 10 to 11, intellectual exercises, objective lessons, interrupted by short rest periods, nomenclature, sense exercises. 11 to 11:30, simple gymnastics, ordinary movements done gracefully, normal position of the body, walking, marching in line, salutations, movements for attention, placing of objects gracefully. 11:30 to 12, luncheon, short prayer. 12 to 1, free games. 1 to 2, directed games, if possible, in the open air. During this period, the older children, in turn, go through with their exercises of practical life, cleaning the room, dusting, putting the material in order, general inspection for cleanliness, conversation. 2 to 3, manual work, clay modeling, design, etc. 3 to 4, collective gymnastics and songs, if possible in the open air, exercises to develop forethought, visiting and caring for the animals and plants, for the plants and animals. As soon as a school is established, the question of schedule arises. This must be considered from 2 points of view: the length of the school day and the distribution of study of the activities of life. I shall begin by affirming that the children's houses, as in the school for deficients, the hours may be very long, occupying the entire day. For poor children, and especially for the children's house annexed to working man's tenements, I should advise that the school day should be from 9 in the morning to 5 in the evening in winter, and from 8 to 6 in summer. These long hours are necessary if we are to follow a directed line of action which shall be helpful to the growth of the child. It goes without saying that in the case of little children, such a long school day should be interrupted by at least an hour's rest in bed. And here lies the great practical difficulty. At present, we must allow our little ones to sleep in their seats in a wretched position. But I foresee a time not distant when we shall be able to have quiet, darkened rooms where the children may sleep in low-slung hammocks. I should like still better to have this nap taken in the open air. In the children's houses, In Rome, we send the little ones to their own apartments for the nap, as this can be done without their having to go out into the streets. It must be observed that these long hours include not only the nap, but the luncheon. This must be considered in such schools as the children's houses, whose aim is to help and to direct the growth of children in such an important period of development as that from 3 to 6 years of age. The children's house is a garden of children culture, and we must certainly do not keep children for so many hours in school with the idea of making students of them. The first step which we must take in our method is to call to the pupil. We call now to his attention, now to his interior life, now to the life he leads with others, making a comparison which must not be taken in a literal sense. It is necessary to proceed as in experimental psychology or anthropology when one makes an experiment. That is, after having prepared the instrument to which, in this case, the environment may correspond, we prepare the subject. Considering the method as a whole, we must begin our work by preparing the child for the forms of social life. And we must attract his attention to these forms. In the schedule, which we outlined when we established the first children's house, but which we have never followed entirely, a sign that a schedule in which the material is distributed in arbitrary fashion is not adapted to the regimen of liberty. We begin the day with a series of exercises of practical life, and I must confess that these exercises were the only part of the program which proved thoroughly stationary. These exercises, which were such a success that they formed the beginning of the day in all of the children's houses. First, cleanliness, order, poise, conversation. As soon as the children arrived at school, we make an inspection for cleanliness. If possible, this should be carried on the presence of the mothers, but their attention should not be called to it directly. We examine the hands, the nails, the necks, the neck, the ears, the face, the teeth, and care is given to the tidiness of the hair. If any of the garments are torn or soiled or ripped, if the buttons are lacking, or if the shoes are not clean, we call the attention of the child to this. In this way, the children become accustomed to observing themselves and take an interest in their own appearance. The children in our children's house are given a bath in turn, but this, of course, cannot be done daily. In the class, however, the teacher, by using a little washstand with small pitchers and basins, teaches the children to take a partial bath. For example, they learn how to wash their hands and clean their nails. Indeed, sometimes we teach them how to take a foot bath. They are given especially how to wash their ears and eyes with great care. They are taught to brush their teeth and rinse their mouth carefully. In all of this, we call their attention to the different parts of the body which they are washing and to the different means which we use in order to cleanse them. Clear water for the eyes, soap and water for the hands, and brush for the teeth, etc. We teach the big ones to help the little ones, and so encourage the younger children to learn quickly to take care of themselves. After this care of their persons, we put on little aprons. The children are able to put these on themselves or with the help of others. Then we begin our visit about the schoolroom. We notice if all the various materials are in order and if they are clean. The teacher shows the children how to clean out the little corners where dust has accumulated and shows them how to use the various objects necessary in cleaning a room. Dust cloths, dust brushes, little brooms, etc. All of this, when the children are allowed to do it by themselves, is very quickly accomplished. Then the children go each to his own place. The teacher explains to them that the normal position is for each child to be seated in his own place in silence, with his feet together on the floor, his hands resting on the table, and his head erect. In this way, he teaches them poise and equilibrium. Then she has them rise to their feet in order to sing the hymn, teaching them that in rising and sitting down, it is not necessary to be noisy. In this way, the children learn to move about the furniture with poise and with care. After this, we have a series of exercises in which the children learn to move gracefully, to go and come, to salute each other, to lift objects carefully, to receive various objects from each other politely. The teacher calls attention with little exclamations to a child who is clean, a room which is well ordered, a class seated quietly, graceful movements, etc. From such a starting point, we proceed to the free teaching. That is, the teacher will no longer make comments to the children, directing them how to move from their seats, etc. She will limit herself to correcting the disordered movements. After the directress has talked in this way about the attitude of the children and the arrangement of the room, she invites the children to talk with her. She questions them concerning what they have done the day before, regulating her inquiries in such a way that the children need not report the intimate happenings of the family, but their individual behaviors, their games, attitudes to parents, etc. She will ask if they have been able to go up the stairs without getting them muddy, if they have spoken politely to their friends who passed, if they have helped their mothers, if they have shown in their family what they have learned at school, if they have played in the street, etc. The conversations are longer on Monday after the vacation, and on that day the children are invited to tell what they have done with the family. If they have gone away from home, whether they have eaten things not usual for children to eat. If this is the case, we urge them not to eat these things and to try to teach them that they are bad for them. Such conversations as these encourage the unfolding of development of language and are of great educational value, since the directress can prevent the children from recounting happenings in the house or in the neighborhood and can select topics which are adapted to pleasant conversation, and this way can teach the children those things which it is desirable to talk about, that is, things with which we occupy ourselves in life, public events, or things which can happen in the different houses, perhaps to the children themselves, as baptisms, birthday parties, any of which may serve for occasional conversation. Things of this sort will encourage children to describe themselves. After this morning, we pass to the various lessons. That concludes this chapter of the Montessori Method. Thank you for listening and for taking part in this journey with me. This project is very much an exploration. If you have thoughts to add, questions to ask, or if you think I misunderstood or missed something important, I genuinely want to hear from you. Please message me, share your reflections, or continue the conversation with fellow listeners. On a quest to learning, relearning, and engaging deeply with Dr. Montessori's work as we go. Join me next time as we continue chapter by chapter.